Today, for our more sensitive viewers, I have turned the beige slider all the way down. This is ChillPoint.
Oh shit, I got.
That was awesome. Paul, you're great.
See, this way, it's just a blob with Beige's face. That way, nobody can be afraid. I suppose we can get rid of that.
Okay.
I think that might have to be the first story we do now.
If you had turned that up and there was like 8 legs growing out of my head, that would have been a great moment. You're like, oh
If
shit,
you were
maybe
just
we
a
should've-
spider.
Yeah, we didn't think this through. Maybe we should have just had. Yeah,
I have to live with you, you know. I don't need that imagery in my brain.
it's fine.
Yeah,
You can't see my legs; they're under all my hair.
that's
That's true.
now this just turned into like a National Enquirer like front page. Like, I married an actual spider.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather that than a Junji Ito comic. Like, let's be fair.
Oh, no.
Hey everybody, welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we chill and talk about the video game stories of the week that we didn't get a chance to talk about on CheckPoint, or that we want to expand upon, because perhaps they were stories that happened during the filming of CheckPoint, and so we were only able to talk about it in the outro.
And I mean, that's lucky. That generally we just don't bother.
Now, as a meta Checkpoint thing too, is that Checkpoint used to be was on Thursdays for a long time, is my understanding. Then eventually got moved to Mondays because that just worked out with scheduling, like how we were scheduling everything to be made, right? And then when we were talking about what we should do, like from that step forward, like from that point forward, we're like, well, what if we actually moved it back to Thursdays? So we did. Because we realized that there's also like news that happens on Friday that we're missing, and we have to wait an entire cycle for the week to actually like pass the weekend or whatever. I remember this being like part of the conversation, like, well, if we move ourselves to Thursday, back onto Thursday, which we can do, that means we can catch most of the week, and then we can actually have a roundup on Thursday. And now people are putting news out Thursday afternoon again.
Well, yes.
It definitely does work better, because it used to be that it was like we would do it on Monday. So the news that would be in the show would be the news from like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But of course, there isn't that much news that gets posted on Sunday. So it would be like Saturday and Friday news. Whereas this way, we are more likely to be up to date on the news that happened just the previous day. But we still can get messed up by it.
Mm-hmm. And by being on Thursday, we can make the same joke that every podcast that I listen to that launches on Thursday makes, which is that these places specifically try to put their news out on Thursday so that we can't talk about it.
Yeah.
I feel like you could make that joke regardless of what day.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts that land on Thursdays, Paul.
Yeah, if we really want to be able to catch everything, we'd probably do it on Saturday, wouldn't we, or a Sunday? But...
Yeah.
Is that because, like, do you listen to the podcast more on Thursdays, or is it just that the podcasts you listen to often are
most of them go up on Thursday? I have one that goes up on Friday, but they're not like a news catchy podcast. They're just a video game podcast.
Now I kind of want like some sort of study about like what is it about Thursday that makes it good for doing a podcast, or is it the kinds of podcasts that you're listening to lend and the people, like, is this a universal thing, or is the sample biased because the podcasts that you listen to happen to be podcasts that are made by the kind of people who like recording on Thursdays?
I wager that it's Monday rolls around. It's the first day of the week, right? Things start happening on Monday. People start recording their podcast then on Tuesday. They'll sit down to record everything on Tuesday because they're like, oh, things will start happening back at work. I'm prepping on Monday to actually have my podcast.
Most podcasts that talk about gaming news of the week just record on Wednesday.
Okay, so or they record on Wednesday
and then
Thursday morning. Edit everything, Wednesday evening, right? And then they go up on Thursday because it's like that's the very next day after you recorded, so it's the freshest you're going to get everything. So it's like you've got Monday and you've got Tuesday to kind of like get all your news, process everything, and then everyone's like, let's get together on Wednesday then, I guess, and record because it's the middle of the week. We've caught whatever news we're going to catch, and then everything goes up on Thursday as a result.
I'm disappointed that you went for something that sounds sane,
Logistically,
and not something that sounds like I only listen to podcasts that land on Thursday, and if they land on another day, then I dare not.
I have to level with you, audience. We operate a business here, and there's a great deal of logistical insight that you tend to get out of CheckPoint and ChillPoint that you probably don't get from reading YouTube comments.
I don't get anything from reading to YouTube comments.
I will say, people are talking about like that's when the news comes out and analytics and stuff. For us personally, the biggest decider of when we move CheckPoint, the biggest decider was just schedule, like our schedule, not anything to do with like CheckPoint could.
Yeah.
We could record CheckPoint on any day during the week, and there are pros and cons to every day of the week. It's more important from our perspective to have it on a day that we have time to do it.
Yeah, like we even discussed that Thursday wasn't a great time because of the way we were doing it, where we was writing everything in the morning, and so we actually changed the way the production worked in order to make Thursday work, just because it was a better day overall.
Yeah, and especially we were recording earlier on the day on Thursday too. Anyway, a little behind the scenes on CheckPoint, and now let's talk about the stories that we did on CheckPoint. Here's some more info. So obviously there is the spider slider, which is definitely a thing that should be in more games. I don't care if it's actually like an accessibility thing. I just want a spider slider. But it's a cool. It's an interesting. Like we talked about a little bit before we shot actually on yesterday, because this idea like accessibility for games is obviously like it's a positive thing, and more people can play your game. I mean, even from a strictly like forget the sort of altruistic aspect of it, or the from a strictly business point of view, more people playing your game means more people buying your game. So there's a positive aspect to that too. But then of course there does become a certain aspect of like at what point is it no longer the game that you were making, right? How many changes can you make to a game before it's not the same game anymore? And does that matter even though? Like if you end up making so many changes to the game that it becomes a completely different thing, but people are still having fun, is that okay? Probably.
Yeah. I mean, in regards to the it's grounded, right?
Yeah.
The whole point of that game is that you're tiny, so spiders make sense, but it's not a horror game.
Yeah, it's supposed to be threatening, and it's supposed to be scary that when you see them.
Yeah, but it's not designed as a horror game, right? It's
true.
It's like an adventure or something.
Yeah, and the problem is not about can I scare, like is this a scary enough, threatening enough? Do people playing this, they actually feel like they're in danger when this is happening? The problem is, am I immediately turning away a population of people because they can't interact with my piece of art that I've made? Mm-hmm. And that's part of the problem, right? Because it's like because I'm seeing YouTube commenters on our thing being like, I don't get it. Isn't that actually the point? Because if people are scared of spiders, then wouldn't the game would be more effective? And I'm like, well, the point of the game isn't to scare you with the spiders. The point of the game is to be a backyard survival game. And it has big spiders that are actually bigger than the player. I didn't realize they're actually bigger than the player.
Yes.
But that idea of it's like the thing you've created is just an active hard out for a certain piece of the population. And if you look at that in the case of the colorblindness thing, right? Like when Uncharted introduced a colorblind option, at the time when they were making that, that's a hard out for people who have that specific colorblind thing. And somebody said, wouldn't it be better if we just changed that or added an option so that people who were colorblind were able to actually see like the what is that, the bread trail, the crumb trail, the breadcrumbs, whatever you want to call it.
I don't know what they did with that.
Uncharted's thing was that it would point you in the direction of the next place that you should be going, but if you were colorblind, you actually couldn't make that out.
Okay.
Or you couldn't play certain puzzles, like there were certain things like that. And it's like, if you look at it from that perspective, then you're saying, is the game that I'm developing, am I okay with excluding a portion of the population, and not based on malice, or even not based on like, what if you did think about it and you're like, we want it to look this way and we're okay with it being this way, we're okay with this game being scary with spiders in it, and we understand that, hey, if you are arachnophobic, that you can't even look at spiders, as if you were like the lotus root thing where you can't look at a collection of holes. Right. If you can't do that, but our game is based on like putting things into multiple holes, then we know that we're excluding you from being able to play this game because we can't change that. And that's then active thought. That's just being like, we're willing to accept the fact that certain portions of the population will not want to engage with this game. But in the case like Grounded, they were like, what if we could make an adjustment? And does it actually make it better on the players? Can we invite more players to play the game? Can we invite more of our developers who are working on the game, who are playtesting the game, to be able to actually do that now, because they don't have to look at a scary spider, while they're debugging the game.
And I mean, it's worthwhile to note two aspects of this, which I've seen in comments in chat and stuff. That it's important to differentiate between something being scary and something triggering somebody's phobia. Like, something being scary can be fun, right? Like, a lot of people enjoy haunted houses and scary things and whatever.
Well, or roller coasters, right?
Or whatever.
Like things that are a little bit more excitement based rather than fear.
Even like fear or whatever. That can be enjoyable in certain circumstances in a controlled sort of thing. Phobias are actually like, they tend to, there's actually like a different thing that happened, like your brain just kind of shuts off in a weird way that can be, that's obviously incredibly unpleasant. And it's not like you're just more scared than other people. It's it's a real serious thing. Also, for some reason, and people are talking about like, well, why don't they have things for snakes and other stuff, which is a legitimate thing. Although, for whatever reason, for humans, spiders are a particular thing. Spiders seem to be in like a different category than everything else. Like, there are more spider phobias than almost any other phobia. It's very weird that way.
It's much more common, yeah.
Yeah, it's and actually the other thing that frustrates me is that you see sometimes that, I saw in comments about this particular feature, see people being like, well, they shouldn't take it out because the exposure is how you get over the phobia, right?
Yeah. Exposure therapy is a debatable.
But exposure therapy is a real thing, and it is a real thing that helps a lot of people. But how you do exposure therapy? How you do exposure therapy?
Forced aspect of it.
Yeah, how you do exposure therapy is not you do a thing and then a spider jumps in your face.
Yeah,
that's not how you do exposure therapy. And then
even
eventually,
if it's a virtual spider, it's not actually touching you. That's still not how you do.
Like, exposure therapy is a real thing, but it's a process that you go through, and it usually with a medical professional who
that's what I mean.
You can change your stuff. Yeah,
a lot of people will advocate for exposure therapy in that same way, where you will see someone who says, "Well, you just have to tough through it, so I'm going to push you off this cliff."
Yeah,
right.
Learn to swim.
Yeah.
There was actually a YouTube comment where somebody was like, well, Cooks Are Delicious goes beyond that. The Cooks Are Delicious 3 thing, where they took the pictures of the dead bugs out of the game, was literally just taking the one part of the game that the one, how you like, wash your hands or make a burger, like it's like clean up the dead bugs is a thing. they just took that out when you select that option. They just like, you don't have to have the option now of having to collect dead bugs or clean up after dead bugs or whatever. We're just gonna remove that little piece from the game. That's not going to make the game any easier, actually.
Yeah, my understanding is they also have a thing for the robberies.
So that's the thing I was going to bring up. The reason why I didn't bring up they removed police sirens and gunshots. I didn't bring that up. They did do that. There's an option to turn those things off if you want. And again, it's optional. And the reason I didn't bring that up is because I'm like, I didn't want to pivot the story into let's talk about PTSD and let's talk about gunshots and let's talk about who would find police sirens particularly freeze fear inducing, like have that kind of phobia. It's like, I don't want to have that conversation. I want to just talk about this spider thing, the bugs thing, kind of keeping that focused on that. The fear of drowning and everything was like, that came up as part of Sea of Thieves. And I'm like, well, I don't want to get too far outside, but I did want to talk about the Sea of Thieves.
Were you aware of the house flipper one?
I was not.
The cockroaches being replaced with broken glass.
Oh, that's a cool.
Which I've actually seen on streams where people come across broken glass because that's a thing that they've turned on.
So the mechanic is the same. You have to clean it up. It's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just looks different, right? To me, it's no different. I mean, like, there's a scare factor there, but like when people argue that it should be in the game or shouldn't be in the game, I'm like, it's not that different to say, I don't want to play a game because I don't like the way it looks. And most people will accept that as a reason. But if I say I don't want to play a game because there's spiders in it, that suddenly changes. And I think that's unfair.
And I think a lot of this is it's more about like intent of the, like, putting spiders in your game because you want to scare people, or having gunshots or sirens in your game is one thing, but putting it in because you just think that that's a cool thing to put in, and not realizing the impact that you might have. Yeah. I think that's part of what this is talking about, is that this idea that, like, if you aren't somebody who is affected by these things, you could put the stuff in the game just because you know, oh, that's a cool idea, let's put that in the game, and not realize, like, so it's not even that you're like trying to make a stand that, like, yes, this is going to be important for my gameplay, right? And so like a lot of the time it's not even like that big a deal. It's like, oh geez, I didn't realize, sorry. That thing, or like, it's not that you're trying to actively do this. It's just, people don't know, or they're not a member of the particular group that is affected by that thing. It sort of reminds me of the thing, the stupid thing of, people putting bad Arabic text in a game. Same deal. You put in the name, you put in Allah or whatever.
You can blame these things in ignorance.
They're not actively trying to be like super edgy. They just don't know. They just looked for, oh, that looks cool, let's put that in.
Yeah.
Like, to them, they didn't care what it was. They just wanted something to go there that would look nice. It just happened to be they chose the wrong thing. But anyway, so that was an interesting, like, it's an interesting, especially what I liked about that story is they talked about the how they actually worked out the system. It's not just, oh, let's do this. They had actually two researchers going through and interviewing people and showing different versions of the spider in different forms, and really trying to, like, narrow down what it is about the spider that's triggering people.
And think about how weird that is, that it's like you have to ask people who say they have a spider phobia to sit down and look at different versions of spiders to be like, we understand that this might be really hard for you, but we're trying to do a study and you can just decide not to participate if you want,
Yeah, people were totally able to, although, and I will say that it was ironic that when I was doing the graphics for this story, the main title graphic, foregrounded, has a big friggin' spider in the corner of it.
Yeah,
I had to redo the title graphic, and like crop it and redo the title in order to not have weird. A spider in the story.
that they have a spider accessibility option and yet a very giant spider in their key art.
I mean, that's multiple departments away from each other, I'm sure.
Oh, certainly,
yeah. But now that the stories come out, I bet you there's probably a push within the organization to be like, is there a way we can design our title art or something else to not make the spiders so prominent, or, you know. And I think also the fact that now that you because it would suck to like have the game in your like Steam library or whatever and have a big gas spider on it. And if you were arachnophobic, but you're like, I did want to play this game and I heard I can turn the spiders down, and so you download the game and then it shows up with a big thing that has a big spider in the corner. You're like, I can't even have that in my Steam library anymore. I can't even scroll past it. Like,
they were saying that the part of the thing that they had to get around was they didn't want to like, this is what the spiders look like in the game, turn the slider to make them less scary, because then you still have to show someone a spider.
Yeah. Heather did mention that when you turn the preview on, you can't turn it off.
That is what I heard. I haven't actually played the game or anything myself to try out those features, but one of the criticisms I had heard was when you turn the preview on, you couldn't turn the preview off, and maybe they'll fix that, or they've maybe fixed it since then. But
all right.
I think the other criticism was that the slider doesn't
tell you
what's happening, like without the preview. Like there's no description or something with it.
You don't know what the level is going to be.
There's like little things they could probably tweak to make it even better.
Other stuff. This story about the Electronic Arts executive salaries, which is just, it seems so tone deaf.
Yeah, what a weird EA story, huh?
It's just like, we want to give ourselves $30 million. And the shareholders are like, no, how about not?
It wasn't even like close. It was 74%.
Which, you know what? Fair play to you. I mean, I'm sure lots of terrible stuff at EA has happened in order to please their shareholders. But fair play to the shareholders on this one. Yeah, that seems dumb. And I don't know. You know, it's hard for me to understand the mentality that they would try to get that like what they're thinking in their brain, what they're thinking in their mind in terms of like why I deserve this. Like, I'm currently making $6 million, but I deserve $16 million.
Yeah.
Like what you think you've accomplished in the corporation to deserve that amount of a raise.
Yeah.
I doubt they put that much thought into it.
But also, I do like the interesting thing about these things is, as Greg talked about in the thing, is that it's like we want to raise these 4 executive salaries by approximately $30 million altogether, and the investors or the shareholders go no, and they're like, okay. And then everyone's like, so apparently you have $30 million lying around? Maybe we could use that for something else.
And then the board would then respond with, well, we were going to use them for executive pay raises. And we know you said no, but we're going to use them for executive pay raises, and you can't do anything about that.
Which, apparently it's a non-binding thing.
Which gets me, because the shareholders will essentially be like, okay, well, we're not going to divest our holdings in EA then. How do you like that? It's like, that makes no freaking difference to us, does it?
Really? I don't know if they'll do anything.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, when the shareholder, like, it's like, hey, we want to give these people this money. And the shareholders say, we don't think, 3 out of 4 said, we don't want you to do that. And the board of directors could say, okay, well, we're going to do it anyway. And the shareholders would be like, okay. Like, that's kind of what's going to happen. Because I don't think, when you have holdings like this, unless it's like a sticking point for you, unless you're like, I absolutely do not want EA to do this, and if you do this, I will divest my holdings. And I don't think anybody's like that. Sorry to say.
I mean, yeah, who knows? Like, theoretically, an animosity between the board and the shareholders can end up with real bad stuff happening in the company, though. So,
Yeah.
the board generally does want to keep the shareholders happy, and especially some of these shareholders have a lot of influence, and also it apparently have been kind of going around. Apparently, one of the holding companies that has a reasonably large stake in EA. This has been one of their kind of things that they've been like. They also have a pretty big stake in Blizzard.
Really?
And Blizzard, and there's also a vote for increasing their salaries, and they were like, maybe don't do that either. So hey, maybe this could be a thing. That
I think it'd be great if it was a thing, if it happened a lot more.
that maybe earlier this year, CTW Investment Group is an institutional shareholder service. The shareholders, it says, shareholders issued a resounding rebuke of Electronic Arts' deeply flawed executive pay practices that do not incentivize executives to create long-term value. And saying earlier this year, the same organization led a public campaign against excessive pay at Activision Blizzard, including $30 million to Bobby Kotick. Now, that compensation package did actually pass, though. So his salary was actually raised, but with less support than it normally does. So
Yeah.
I guess that's something. 60% support instead of which is the lowest it's ever had.
Yeah, so this could end up being this is kind of like a snowball, right? Like we could see a sea change. This is a weird thing, a snowball and a sea change. I'm mixing my metaphors, but we could actually see that start happening. And these changes can be slow.
Oh yeah, no, this is not something I expect us to hear about for like weeks.
Yeah,
but it's just
not longer.
In this
forever.
In this world that we find ourselves in, where where financially things, aside from all the medical health stuff, obviously that all has a very big financial impact on lots of people. The idea that apparently EA has $30 million literally lying around, that they have nothing that they have nothing better to do with.
I mean, it's either lying around or it's something they took from what might have gone to another department, right? Like, but budgeting can sometimes be a thing where you only have a certain amount of money, and they're like, "Well,
we're allocating this to here.
This will go over here. This will be good."
Yeah, and now they have a $30 million surplus. What are they going to do with it? Maybe something actually worthwhile.
Yeah, maybe. Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, probably not. Is EA how? So EA is. This is a thing I'm curious about. Just to, before we move to the next story, EA is based in Vancouver, Canada, right? Vancouver, British Columbia.
There is a branch of EA.
I think there's an office. Yeah.
Yeah, they're an American company.
They are an American company.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that they were like, oh, we moved our main offices to Canada. We have our major area, like everything's all in Vancouver, and then we have a few branch offices elsewhere. But that's not the case. The EA one in Vancouver is a branch office.
Yeah.
They're based in Redwood Shores, California. Thank you, Black Isis. So, yeah, this is one of those things where, because it just occurred to me, I'm like, if you're talking about we need to do better with like giving people more healthcare and stuff like that, I'm like, well, if they're a Canadian company, that's not always the most prevalent thing for people generally, because a company like that will have really good benefits as it is. But anyway, I just curious about that.
Okay.
Other stuff was you can there's a model of Hitler being shot in the balls for the Sniper Elite board game, which seems like a neat board game, by the way.
Oh yeah,
it seems like a cool thing to play. It makes me sad that we probably won't get a chance to play it anytime soon, but it seems like a neat thing. It's like one player plays the sniper who's like sneaking around, and then the other players are the targets of the sniper, but they're trying to find it's an asymmetrical kind of thing. They're trying to find the sniper, and the sniper's trying to sneak around and assassinate people. Seems like a cool idea. But yeah, that there's a little teeny weeny. I don't know. What I'm very curious about is what is the context in the game in which you use that miniature. Like, is there also like a regular Hitler miniature, and then it's like, if you roll a 5 on the dice, replace the regular Hitler miniature with the Hitler shot in the balls miniature.
I could see it just not having any purpose for the game and just being an extra. But maybe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it should just be an extra pack in because hooray.
I mean, the
I mean,
Kickstarter stuff does that, though.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, extra miniatures, things you can just replace with whatever or not, or generally they don't want to take away if it's an extra, as opposed to a thing that everybody is getting. Then generally it's just a thing of like, we don't want to take away from our regular experience, so it won't really have that much impact.
It's definitely a like. The whole point of the story in CheckPoint was essentially, hey, remember this game that lets you take X-ray, like shoots people in the balls, and you can take an X-ray, a bone scan that also shows their apparently calcified testicles.
Yeah, that's weird.
Blowing up. And it's like, that was kind of the main thing that everyone remembers about Sniper Elite, is that it gives you graphic detail about what you're doing to the person's body with the bullet, which is, I think, also educational in its own way.
Presumably there are
and
other parts of the game, but yeah, that's pretty much the main thing that is like remembered.
Yeah.
I guess so it's less an X-ray and more just like a internal view, because you see like muscles and stuff too.
So that.
And then finally in the show we had the great conclusion to the Lovestruck story that the 21 writers of Lovestruck successfully struck, I guess.
Yeah. And they were on strike for 21 days, which is a good numbers that go together, I guess.
And it was a pretty substantial 66 to 94% pay increase. So booyah for that.
One of the stories I saw took them from the average of 3.5 cents per word to 6.4 cents per word. And that's averages, right? So people who have seen their increase, that because I thought it was like it's just a new flat per word rate that everybody will get, which is a fairly good thing for equality. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like we went from an average of this to an average of that, and that's still how it's going to be done, is through getting paid like that. But if you're making 2/3 more than you were yesterday, just because you said, I think I deserve to get paid more, that's great.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I understand, this is much closer to the the Writers Guild, what is considered to be the minimum.
Yeah.
And whether it is actually like at a minimum now, or more people are making the minimum, or more people are making the median, or something like that, that's not very clear, because I don't know if there haven't been any stories that have really dug deep into here's what all the writers' contracts work like. That might just be a thing where the writers themselves are not going to make that obvious. Or maybe it's just like, that's not interesting to put in a.
I would still like to know that maybe their deadlines aren't as ludicrous.
That would be great
because
too.
That's still,
they didn't bring that up.
Like more money, good. Like they need to survive, and they should definitely get paid more. But I don't like the idea that the deadlines that got suggested sounded a lot like crunch.
Yeah.
The ridiculous
they're getting improved transparency.
The ridiculous turnaround times was definitely one of their other big things. So anyway, yay for collective action.
Yeah, and the thing that I wanted to point out with the story too is that it's like it wasn't just them doing this at this point, that they sought out the Campaign to Organize Digital Employees, CODE or CODE, that the Communication Workers of America were that's one of their initiatives, is to try to find digital employees and say, let's see if we can't get you guys to get, you can, in a lot of states, you're allowed to get together and form a union if you want to. And this is a case where they're like, we can help you. You can't, if you realize if you try to form a union, it's not protected under the federal government. Like there are union laws that say that allow you to actually form a union, but because you are a freelance group, you're all contractors, you don't have the ability to protect yourselves in the same way as if you were actual salaried employees from the company. So you're taking a really big risk, but you're already taking a really big risk. And I think that's what also makes this a little different, is that it's like these freelance writers went on strike after trying to do their bargaining, and they could do that because they were like, we have nothing to lose. And if you work for a company and you're making $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a year as a programmer for a game company, you're going to look at that, and you're going to also look at the potential to unionize. And you might say to yourself, it's not worth me getting fired or me getting put on crap duty or like company retaliation because I'm too worried about losing my really big salary. And that might be a lot of the fear, is that people are like, there's too much to lose. But this should kind of, I'm hoping, would be a wake up call. People be like, it can work out in your favor, even if you're like worried that you're going to put yourself under, like, I'm going to lose something. It's like this could still work out quite well for you, as long as everyone gets together and does it. It's kind of the message I wanted to give people. I've been in a lot of unions, so I'm very pro union.
Have you ever gone on strike?
I've never gone on strike.
I'm just curious.
I have worked with people who have gone on strike.
That's not like a indictment or anything. I just want to.
I've worked with people who were considered so essential to the function of the service that when their union went on strike, they had to be given a special card, like a big placard, so they could walk up to the union line and say, you need to let me in because I need to ensure that the servers are still operational. I have to cross the picket line. And the union's like, we agree that you have to cross the picket line, because if you don't go in and make sure the servers are running, when we come back to work, everybody has way too much work to do.
There won't be any job to come back to.
Exactly.
That's fair. I mean, hopefully, there's been lots of sort of talk about unionization and collective action in the video game industry in the last couple of years. So, hopefully things will be moving more into that direction. We should probably we should talk about this EA, or not EA, the Epic Fortnite
thing,
Apple thing, which is like, I don't know. To me, it's not even like that. Like, it's a big deal in the industry, I guess, but it's like clearly, basically, like, it seems to be pretty clear that it's Epic being like, okay, we're at the point where we think we can challenge this thing in court. So let's set all our ducks up in a row and then do a thing to instigate a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
Like, it's
like that was a planned move. Yes.
And so, because which is actually apparently how you're actually supposed to do. These things are really dumb, but like how you're supposed to actually do these kind of things is like the court won't rule on a thing that hasn't been challenged. I guess that like the court doesn't just rule on something for the heck of it. There has to actually be somebody violating the law or violating the whatever it is, or suing somebody else in order for the court to actually rule on it. So somebody has to do something. And Epic was like, you know what? Sure. Let's set our things up and then we're going to say stuff. And I mean, whether the 30% cut is unreasonable, I don't know. I mean, that's certainly when Apple was, when started, that was low. If it was industry standard, if somewhat on the low end that they were taking in comparison to a lot of other, console manufacturers and various other places with, and it's the same as what Steam takes. And, they were sort of in the same realm. Now, stuff, maybe stuff has changed over time, and what the value proposition maybe is different now than it was. So I don't know, but
yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
My issue is not that Epic wants to pick a fight. It's not that Apple wants to protect its TOS or Google, because they're also fighting Google now. It's the blatant I'm not even against the fact that they had their documentation ready to go and do those things. Of course they did. It's the blatant, we're going to try and make gamers rise up and make our hashtag and make our fan base go fight for us in this dumb console-esque type war that I'm just like, no,
astroturfing thing.
No,
yeah.
F all of you. You can all go battle this out in court like you're supposed to with your little money fights. And at the end of the day, you're all still going to have money, and the rest of us are just going to. And now I have to endure a timeline of a bunch of 12-year-olds who are like, "Oh no, they took my Fortnite away." Like, come on.
Yeah, it's very.
Especially with that 1984 bull crap.
Yeah, and it's also and it's like and of course the hypocrisy of Epic, which not only operates its own storefront, obviously, but also even on a more precise level, operates the like Fortnite. The only thing you can buy in Fortnite is stuff provided by Epic.
Yeah,
that's the only thing. Which I don't know.
There's a lot of like great little striations, the cute little layers that you can build all sorts of arguments and counter arguments and gotcha points and stuff around too, and which is great. It's very satisfying for the human brain to be like, but what about this? And the thing I keep coming back to, because I see Apple supporters, people who are big fans of Apple, looking at what's been going on with the 70-30 split, that developers get 70% and Apple takes a 30% cut for anything that any purchase made through something that is on the App Store. And that includes on in-app purchases as well, because they're like, part of you being here is we have to support the infrastructure that makes this happen. And when I say infrastructure, it's not just the servers and the bandwidth and the hard drive space and all that kind of stuff. It's like the infrastructure of managing any sort of online software store is beyond that. You have people whose job it is to check all the stuff that's coming into the store, because that's part of the thing of having an app store. An app store, not the app store, but an app store, is that I know that with my phone, I want to know that anything that I download at least has had some cursory checks to make sure that there's not malware all over it, right? Because it's not a case of my computer where I have to buy malware software, antivirus software, and all that. It's like, it's just nice to know that my phone is kind of free of that I have a device that, even if it is stringently locked down, it's locked down for a reason, because I don't want my phone to freak the fuck out or start tracking me or like do all sorts of stuff like that. So you have people whose job it is to check those apps, but then you have people whose job it is just to curate that stuff into categories as well. And you have the job of people who is to write editorials and stuff to kind of bring more apps to people's attention. And you have the job of people who it is to market the App Store, and you have the job of people who have to provide management to these groups. And that means that you have to form maybe a couple layers of management for that. And the millions of apps that are on the App Store means that that's not just you have a group of 5 people with like a manager on top. You need 50 or 100 or 150 people. And if you look at what the App Store has gone through with the problems of trying to get a hold of anybody to get any explanation as to why your app is not getting through on the App Store, they already have those problems too. If you were to spin the App Store off into its own category, it probably would be $1 billion business just on its own. And so you need to have a lot of money to help support that. And if the whole point of the App Store is you put your apps here so people can pay money for them, and you're saying, but I want the whole cut, it's like, then how do the people who run the App Store make any money? Volume? You can't do that unless they're getting a cut. So the problem here is more that perhaps the cut is unfair, but we actually don't know how much money is needed to make this stuff run in the first place.
Yeah. And I mean, and there's also the aspect of the sort of locked down aspect of the App Store, which of course has, its benefits and its downsides, which you're talking about. But and it's also like, obviously Epic has their own store where they take 16%, I think.
It's 12, I think.
Oh, is it 12? Okay.
It might be. I mean, maybe it's a little higher. It is less than 30,
12,
definitely.
12. Where they're so they're undercutting the industry from the percentage point. But it's a little disingenuous, I think. It's disingenuous to sort of look at that and then be like, well, clearly you can do it for 12%. Well, and so these companies that are doing it for 30% are just taking
robber barons.
Taking a whole bunch of profit, because it's like, one, the Epic Store is tiny in comparison to all these other stores. Two, it's extremely curated. Nobody is allowed in there unless Epic allows Epic allows them, and even then, often they have to sign exclusives with them. And three, there's no indication that Epic is actually making any money off the Epic Store. In fact, the fact that they're giving away $50 games often every week would indicate that they're losing money on the Epic Store intentionally, right?
Yeah, and I've definitely read criticisms about that where people are saying that they're doing that as a way to try and stranglehold competition in those areas, like make Steam terrible, which you don't have to try so hard for Steam. Steam has gotten its own self buried under a lot of stuff, so but
anyway, this is one of those things where it's like, it's news, but in some ways you don't really care that much, because it's just like, big companies fighting each other, and they're trying to kind of bring support from both of their sides. I don't know what Apple's been doing about it, but at least
I
Epic
think Apple's doing.
Epic has been Apple's hitting a bunch of stuff.
I think what Apple's been doing is essentially what Apple always does in these kind of cases, where they're like, sit on this shit for a week while the PR department, the legal department look at the kind of response we want to make, and then we will draft a thing, and then we will put that out, and it'll be a letter. And I don't think for a moment that there's going to be a ton of Apple supporters rushing to the aid of Apple versus Epic. There's going to be pundits who are sitting there who are like writing their things and saying, I'm going to go to Daring Fireball and see John Gruber say some stuff. In fact, he already did, because he was like, when he saw that Epic was like Epic's getting thrown off the Google Play Store, that he was like, I'm just sitting here waiting for Epic to drop their amazing 1984-esque ad that skewers Google for the same thing.
They probably won't.
Any minute now.
Though that would have been hilarious if they had one ready for Google as well.
It'd be, I think they didn't expect that Google was going to do that.
It's either they didn't expect it or they didn't care as much.
Yeah, and I think both of those things could be true, because apparently if you have your app on the Google Play Store, you don't make a lot of money from that. People don't spend money on Android by and large. People spend way more money on iOS platforms. So I can see why Epic's like, losing Fortnite on the iOS platform, we're already giving up a ton of money, and if we lose it completely, then we're losing a lot of money, because people are probably buying stuff there.
Right, except that's the thing, though. It's not like we were just sitting here and Apple took our thing away.
Yes.
Like, they enabled an in-app purchasing system that had been hidden.
Yeah, they deliberately.
That had been hidden, so it got through the approval process, and then after it already got through the approval process and had been in the App Store for a while, they then enabled an in-app thing that is very clearly against the terms of service. Like, not even a question that it would be against. Like, there's no reason why they would, and clearly they knew it was against the terms of service because they hid it to begin with.
Yeah. So there's, I'm an Apple user, and I'm not technically rich. I have some money, but I'm not rich. But I do spend a little bit of money here and there on the platform. So it's, I can see why that is anyway. This is the kind of thing that you can have hours and hours and hours of actual factual conversation about, as opposed to just letting, just having inflammatory, I want my Fortnite kind of stuff. And it's going to make this whole series, I don't know if, maybe we will talk about this next week on CheckPoint, because because there will probably be more developments in all of these cases. And there might be more lawsuits against Epic.
Yeah, I mean, there was one that popped up today, and I'm sure there'll probably be other stuff, and it's going to depend upon how much movement happens on this, or if we even hear about it, because we might not hear about more of it. Although Epic, when it comes to Fortnite and Epic, because of how fast they do a lot of turnaround stuff with updates and seasons, and they're always, to me it always feels like their marketing campaign is to be doing something new constantly so that people are still talking about them. And so maybe they will continue to say things, or maybe they'll make a new video that we can all be like, why are you still doing this about?
Yeah. All right, other stuff. Stories we didn't talk about. For the upcoming Tony Hawk Pro Skater remake, where they're remaking 1 and 2, they're renaming one of the tricks. So there's a trick in Tony Hawk called...
and in skateboarding in general, actually.
Skateboarding in general. Yeah. So there's a trick called the mute air, which is where you grab the front of your board and lean forward while airborne. And it was invented by a skater named Chris Weddle in the 1980s. And it's called the mute air because Chris Weddle is deaf. And
that's a great sentence, by the way.
And skaters are kind of dicks sometimes.
Yeah.
And people who are profoundly deaf often don't speak very well because they can't hear themselves. And so I think it's a reference to that, or maybe he didn't talk very much because he was deaf. Anyway, it's called the mute. And so recently, apparently, Tony Hawk himself got talked to Chris Weddle about it, and like asked him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's kind of annoying. I'd rather it was called like the deaf air, or the Weddle air," and so that's what it's called now, the Weddle air.
Yeah. And Chris Weddle, from the article I saw, was actually really touched that in the latest Tony Hawk remasters, that when they renamed it, and then they told Chris, it's like, by the way, we're renaming that the Weddle or the Weddle Air, and he was just like, "That's so nice of you guys." Like, imagine being a part of the community where you get to invent a trick back in your 20s, right? Back when you're like whatever, and then see that trick it gets named by some people who are like, "Oh, I'm not mute, guy. Oh, fucking whatever. You're all whatever." And then see that plastered over video games forever and be like, "Oh, wow. Like this thing that I invented, which is a very straightforward trick compared to like some other ones." And then to have somebody turn around and be like, "We did you dirty. We're going to rename it and actually name it after you." And to be like, "Oh, my legacy." Like, I don't think Tony Hawk has a trick named after himself.
He's got several video games. I think he's fine.
I mean, the 900 is his trick, but it's called the 900.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's just spinning nine. Like, it's a very impressive trick, but and he was the first one to do it in competition. But it's not that hard to come up with. It's just spinning more than before.
Do skateboarding tricks normally get named after people?
Oh,
they don't.
The McTwist is named after Mike McGill, because it was a specific type of ramp jump and is it like a 360 or a 540? But when you're doing it, you're actually flipping at the same time, which is a very complicated thing to do. It's like being in a gyro, and the fact that when he landed, that people were like, "Oh my god, what are we going to call that?" And they called it the McTwist. It's very it's like people don't generally get that kind of thing. The reason I remember Mike McGill is because of, and I'm probably getting his name wrong, but the reason I remember him is because of the McTwist, which is an unusual thing to get a trick named after yourself. But yeah.
Other stuff. Final Fantasy 14 is adding a new patch is about to come out. Or maybe just came out. That has actually been delayed. It was supposed to be coming out earlier in the year, but COVID delayed it for a while. and it's adding a bunch of stuff, tightening up, and it's actually reducing. So I just thought this was funny and interesting that so they're actually reducing and condensing some of the missions. Basically, like missions that had a bunch of like go collect a bunch of bear asses or whatever.
Okay.
They're cutting out a bunch of like the middle parts of the missions that were pointless and just time wasting, and like condensing the mission down. And I don't know. My joke for this was like this weird crazy world we're in when like a patch is released for a JRPG that makes the game shorter and makes missions shorter, and people are like, "Yes, this is an improvement." It's
well,
like,
it turns out nobody has to go get bear asses anymore. They installed a vending machine for them down the street.
yeah.
It's weird to think, but it's weird to think like, oh shit, thank God you made my game shorter. That's all I needed.
But I mean, but just especially JRPGs, which are like, you know, known for like advertising like on the box, you know, 100 hours without side quests or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's the idea of like, yeah, we were looking at this quest and we were like, it's kind of pointless. There's no reason for this. Why are we making the player do this? We should just take this out. And it's like, I feel like that's a dangerous road to go down, because if you start looking at all the quests, be like, wait, is this entire thing totally pointless? Are video games totally pointless? Maybe we're all just wasting our time. Oh my god.
I do that so much, Paul, you have no idea. And I'm just like, what if I can just hit this button and let the spreadsheet just do itself for a while? You know, like
It's called the clicker game. They're really good.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Like what I would love is in Animal Crossing, there's a lot of like when you catch something, you always catch it and then you turn to the screen and show it off and then you say a little thing and then you go on with your day, right? And what I would love is when I catch something, when I catch it, if it would pop a little thing above my head that just says sea bass, right? And like if I could turn off the posing and the dialogue and whatever else, it would just be like sea bass, and it puts it in my pocket, and I can keep walking. And
you don't want to read the pun again for the 50th time?
Well, because I'm kind of done.
It's such a good pun.
Like in a recent update,
I can't remember what it is.
They took Sahara the camel sells you rugs and wallpaper and flooring, and they said we've streamlined the process of buying stuff from Sahara. And I thought what that was going to mean was, oh great. When I go talk to Sahara, she's going to have her opening line and be like, do you want to buy rugs or whatever? And then be like, oh, here are these 3 rugs, like small, medium, large, this, and then give me my choices like very fast. All they did to streamline the process really was just when you get to the end of buying a rug, she says, hey, do you want to buy something else? And then starts the whole process over, which means you don't have to come out of the conversation, wait a second to talk to her again, and then go back into the conversation. And yet that was amazing. Just to be able to be like, I want to continue buying things for you. Please let me do that. If they added a shopping cart, I'd be even more on board. But even just that one thing was like, oh, I'm so glad I get to do this now.
When you're dying of thirst in the desert, just a little drip of water is all it takes to. Like,
yeah, just let the camel spit in my mouth. That's all I need.
No, not in a kid's game.
It reminds me, my favorite one, like in terms of Final Fantasy. So like Final Fantasy 12 had the Gambit system, right?
Okay.
Which was, again, very dangerous, because the Gambit thing was, the idea was you could actually like, it was this sort of rudimentary programming thing. You could build in a thing to you could tell your people, be like, if you're below, attack every turn or whenever you can, unless you're below half health, and then use a health potion. Or, whatever. You could do sort of rudimentary stuff like that. There was a lot of, it was dumb in the sense that you had to, like, there were items that you had to collect. And so, like, a gameplay mechanic would get better as you went in the game, because it's like, oh, now you can tell them to do stuff when they're at, when one of their allies is hurt and stuff.
Okay, that's kind of cool. All right.
So it was cool. And of course, as a programmer type, I was like, this is really neat. I kind of want to do more of this. Like, I want to do more of this. But then there's also the aspect where then you start realizing it. So wait a minute, I've just made a system that plays this game, and it's basically doing as well as I was doing. Why am I here?
Yeah. What if I could separate myself from the game briefly? I mean, that's what the that system is that Final Fantasy 13, the paradigm shifts and stuff. That's what that looked like to me the whole time, is being like, I just changed paradigm to something else, and now the game is deciding I'm going to fight like this, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. What is my job?
Yeah. Or my brother and I were playing Gears of War 4, I think, which is designed to be played with 4 people, and so but you can't play it with 2, and then you just have 2 AIs with you. And we were, going around and shooting stuff and having fun and, hiding and throwing grenades and blowing things up. And we're like, yeah, we're doing good. And we got distracted by something that we were like looking at something or talking or something. And we realized that the AIs were like doing really well. And then maybe we were basically like the like charity case that the AIs were just like taking along with them, and they're like that we weren't actually helping the effort very much.
Nice.
The AIs were just like carrying us through the whole thing.
I would rather an AI that actually does something good than one of those games where you're stuck with an AI you can't control, so you're mostly just running behind them trying to make them not die because
that turns into an escort quest.
Yeah.
All right, a couple other things here. The GTA Summer Update is coming out, which, thank God, allows you to do more things with your yacht.
Oh, goodness.
I love this headline. GTA Summer Update allows you to do more things. Don't you just hate it when you're on your yacht and you've got nothing to do? You're like, man.
Isn't that the point of being on one? That's what I've been told.
Yeah.
You go.
I guess I just have to buy another yacht.
Something.
But talk about, first world GTA problems. I have a yacht, but what do I do with it? So they've added a bunch of missions, apparently. So you can also, apparently, yachts are on sale.
Oh, good.
Which just seems
I would
weird.
hope they would come with sails. No, wait, that's a sailboat.
Yeah.
Yachts don't need sails.
Yachts don't need sails.
Yeah, yachts don't need sails.
Well,
they don't need to be on sale.
You can... A yacht is one of those things that's like kind of a... Like, I think there's a larger definition for them. You can have sail-driven yachts, I'm pretty sure. We don't these days. We have engine-driven yachts, but yeah. Anyway, because yacht racing is a thing, and yacht racing involves sailboats.
I just assumed that whoever had the biggest motor won.
Generally, I would assume, but I mean, if your boat's too big, because if you have a really big boat, you need bigger engines to.
Well, anyway, I mean, there's a certain point where if your yacht's too big, it's just a cruise ship, isn't it? Yeah.
Man,
right.
You ever had that problem when your yacht's too big? Ugh, it's the worst.
And 4,000 old people want to come just
no,
2 weeks.
Go away! Go away! This is a yacht. This is not a cruise ship. Go away. When's the buffet? There's no buffet. This is not a cruise ship.
You want food? You cook. Get in the kitchen. You probably get better food that way, actually, too. You let some old retirees on and let them run your kitchen, let them run like the all the other stuff, and be like, yeah, F it. This is retirement. This is a retirement ship. All these old people work for me. Yachts. I go on the cruise. I hang out. All these old people who have worked their jobs until they're like 65 years old, and I want to retire, and they don't know how to retire properly. They just need something to do. It's like, that's what I want. I want to live on a ship that's just filled with copies of my parents.
What? You want clones of your parents? What kind of Twilight Zone episode are you planning?
So stuck on a cruise ship with just a whole bunch of copies of your parents are the only... Like, that is definitely a Twilight Zone episode.
Please tell me that I am not alive in this fantasy. I don't think I could take it.
I have not met your parents, but
I'm
I would assume that they are. That's still
I didn't say clones. I said copies.
Maybe they would all distract each other.
That's
that would
the thing.
Be fine. Maybe it would be okay.
Who better to hang out with than people who are just like you? That's what we do anyway. That's how life works. Also, the complaint that I saw on Kotaku was that the GTA Online yacht things that you can do, a lot of the things that you can do on your yacht are not things that you do on a yacht. They're things that you do in conjunction. Like, you get to beat up rival yacht owners and gangs and stuff. And I'm like, I wanted yacht gangs to be such a thing, but that's not the case. It's like gangs and yacht owners, but not yacht gangs. But I'm like, oh man, having a yacht gang thing sounds like it'd be badass.
It's like, maybe there are, like, I am not involved in the yacht community. Maybe there are yacht gangs, but I feel like they don't solve their problems through beating each other up.
Are yacht gangs like motorcycle gangs where like they're like do they
like a big group of yachts like drive through a town?
Do they go down the water in like a Canada Geese formation?
Yeah, like the flying V.
Yeah,
and they like splash all the people who are sitting like on the shore,
trying to fish or have a barbecue.
Okay.
With like
I will watch
really
watch
loud
this cartoon.
motorboats.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, instead it's like a bunch of stuff that you do off the ship, but that you do because you own a yacht. Like, it's like, okay, there's a couple things I guess you do that involve being on the yacht, and but I'm like, no, what about like beating up pirates? Like, if you're on your yacht and you're out at sea, then a bunch of pirates will show up and try to steal all your shit. Like modern day pirates, I think, not Captain Jack Sparrow.
Oh well, I mean,
but they all show up and start kicking the shit out of your captain.
Clearly, there should be a Sea of Thieves crossover where you can be a yacht owner in Sea of Thieves and go and beat up pirates.
Lyricel just pointed out that my entire play it forward for Shadowrun Hong Kong was just a bunch of yacht gangs, and you're right.
You being on yachts?
No, they all own boats. They're all clustered together on the thing. They all have their own little territories. They're all yacht gangs.
Around on those boats.
They didn't. They never
just kept them. It's like being like, oh, I own a car, but I never drive it. Like,
it's true.
I will put forward that if you are like that, being attacked by pirates on your yacht in Grand Theft Auto 5 or Grand Theft Auto Online, is not that surprise. Like, I would be surprised if people weren't trying to like. Grand Theft Auto, sure, it's Grand Theft Auto, but presumably Grand Theft Yacht would also be included in that. Like, I'm assuming that in the world of Grand Theft Auto, people are just stealing every vehicle all the time.
Like, if this was Saints Row Online, it would be actual 18th century pirates.
That would be
awesome.
That's
clear. They would on a ghost ship. They would come through the. That's what would happen.
Would be good. Yeah, I could get behind that.
I never played Saints Row, but the bit that I watched Graham play it, and the more that I experienced that kind of thing.
You were around for.
I was, but I never really played the game, right? But it's like that kind of thing. I'm like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, God damn, the Saints Row really missed a trick. Like they it's too bad they didn't last longer than they did. But
5-hour saving Christmas stream.
Yeah,
that you were part of.
It's fantastic.
Anyway. All right. Speaking of dumb things in online games, the last story we've got here, which I love the headline, is Red Dead Online is so busted that horses are flying and it's raining alligators.
Do they all have like Pegasus? They have wings and stuff?
No. They're just running through the air. Or sometimes a horse will get like stuck halfway in a tree. Also, there are no people. Except for one bald guy that nobody's ever seen before. Like, the servers are completely somehow the servers got completely messed up. And so they're like, people will log in and there'll be no NPCs anywhere except this one bald guy that nobody has ever seen before, who just is wandering around.
Is it?
Holy crap!
Is there a picture of this bald man? Is it just Ian? Has Ian infiltrated Red Dead Online?
I don't think it's Ian, but I can't be sure.
I feel like Ian would fit in with the aesthetic.
Wait, there's a.
No, I think he would.
Yeah, he would.
Absolutely, here's a picture of him.
Oh Jesus! For a second, I would have almost said I think that's Ian, but then I saw the chin strap.
It's not quite the right.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the glasses, but.
But it's just like, if I picture a bald man infiltrating video games and causing havoc and nobody else is around, I picture Ian.
Yeah. Ian, to me, feels like the apothecary.
Yeah.
Like, that's where he should be. He should be like giving you cocaine for the ghosts in your blood. Like, that's the...
And yeah, they're literally... There's a video here. I'll link to the Kotaku post. There's a video here of it. You think raining alligators is like, oh, an alligator fell from the sky. No, no, no. It's literally whatever is supposed to be spawning the raindrops is instead spawning alligators. There's alligators
they-
falling down.
Full-length alligators, or like alligators the size of raindrops?
Hang on, I gotta find the video.
Because I feel like I would be mildly scared of tiny alligators as well as large ones.
Would you be more scared of tiny alligators?
Oh my god.
Depends how many there are.
You can see them falling.
Oh, that's just weird.
Is he gonna go over there? Oh, maybe. Oh, there's lots of them too.
So it's seriously messed up. I don't know. Now this is apparently patch 1.2.1 has caused this issues. I'm assuming that they're if they haven't already fixed it. I haven't played Red Dead Online, so I don't know if they fixed it already. But the fact that this all happened is pretty like I don't understand like how this stuff happens really in terms of
what code was necessary to make all these conflicts.
And this doesn't seem to be like, oh, if you do this weird thing, all this weird stuff happens. This is happening to like everybody. So you think that there would be some sort of QA process to would catch this. But anyway, apparently people are taking advantage of the fact that everything is deserted right now to do some cool like wildlife, or not wildlife, but like landscape photography. You can't do wildlife photography because all the animals are gone.
What? Except for alligators.
Apparently. It's kind of got like a post-apocalyptic feel to it because there's all the buildings and everything are still there.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny. It's like, maybe this is an intentional move. Is that every few months they'll be like, oh, we're just going to introduce something that breaks the game so that people come back to the game to experience it. It's like we can't do what Fortnite does, but we can sure as hell do this.
All right. Next update, we do. Next time they just do like crossover GTA 5 with Red Dead. People just start like showing up in their cars in Red Dead, drive a yacht.
Like that Age of Empires 2 thing where you can spawn like Shelby Cobras.
Yeah. And then there's also like cowboys riding around in GTA 5
on motorcycles,
and holding up the bank and stuff.
One new NPC that no one's seen before, who but is all of the people now.
It's just Mario.
It's just everywhere. There's like thousands of them. Like they've overcompensated for the lack of people, and all the animals that show up have his face.
They're the same. They're that like texture map, but mapped onto the shape of the animal.
Yeah, some real horror feel.
So that gets really bad. When that happens. Anyway,
I like these new games we make.
Yeah,
I think that was all the. There's somebody came up with a. So in the continuing saga of Raymond, the most popular Animal Crossing, it's Raymond, isn't it?
Yes, Raymond.
Yeah. Raymond is one of 3 animals that does not have an amiibo card and is therefore impossible to get in the game unless you find him in the game.
So in keeping with the objectification of Raymond from Animal Crossing, in the sense that he has become a commodity to be traded, people have some streamers have Crunchy Island is the name of it's a duo, and they've been making these incredibly complicated mazes that like cover the entire island and take like hours to get through, and they have like races, and whoever gets to the thing. And at the end, there's Raymond in like the house, and you can talk to him and get him to come to your house, or get him to come to your island.
I knew when people because Animal Crossing has sold like 22 million copies, and is probably the best selling it's ever been. And I knew it was exciting when a whole bunch of people started to like a franchise that I really liked.
Yeah.
I forgot that they would probably also be exposed to all of the same stuff we did in the last game, including trading villagers. I wouldn't be surprised that there's a bunch of people who have cycling towns, given that sales number.
Yeah, this is kind of it's cool that it's the different terrain options, like the one maze that they made that's 2 heights. So it's like you cross like on the ground, you go through the maze in the ground, but then you then also have to be able to cross it from jumping from place to place on the second level as well. And it's like, that's a really cool idea. Like,
and you have to like dig up and find, there's like hidden like ladders and stuff that you have to use in order to get through it.
Yeah, it's just a very, I think it's a very clever way to develop like games within games. And I mean, good for them. And apparently you can play the Dream Suite version soon, which I think is a very cool idea, because I think people will just want to do that. They'll be like, well, when they currently have a beta version up, it says, but when they have the full version ready, I guess, you can just go and do the thing. I don't know if that means you get to actually win Raymond.
Yeah, no, there'd be no reason for you to, because the dream is intangible.
Yeah.
You don't get to take anything.
Yeah, but you do get to, like, can you make it through the maze? Can you play the Dream Suite?
You can have fun with it, yeah.
Yeah, and be like, could I actually make it to Raymond? That kind of idea. It's a very neat idea.
Anyway. So yeah, I think that's all the stories we do. Like we said, I'm sure there'll be more stuff with epic-y things happening, but not at the moment, and who cares about it, really?
Microsoft announced that the Xbox Series X will come out still later in 2020, but Halo Infinite has been delayed to 2021.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That's news.
Which was, I mean, Halo Infinite was supposed to be a launch game, and, Halo is certainly the banner, one of the, banner Microsoft franchises. So the fact that they're admitting that it won't be a launch game is tough. On the other hand, in this this idea of discouraging excessive crunch, yeah, I think it's good, and also it makes for a fun headline, because you can go like Halo infinitely delayed. Mm-hmm. Ooh, or I like Halo indefinite.
That's good too. I like
that's a good one.
Batman. That's good.
Batman, yeah. All right.
I mean, at some point, maybe one day, they'll actually tell people how much the box will cost them, and then people can be.
Have they not? They haven't actually done the price on Xbox One Series X. Yeah.
There's no prices for any of the new stuff.
Somebody had put a comment which got like rare for comments to get like in Ars Technica to be like pushed to the main article, but this person's comment was really good. It was just, all right, Sony, Microsoft, say the price of your new console on 3. 1, 2. And it's like, that's what they should do. They should just have the two of them stand in like a place and be like, you're both going to say the price of your console at the same time. Okay, and go.
Like I haven't paid that much attention to new consoles coming out in like out in this way before, but don't they generally tell you the price by this point? Like, it just doesn't feel like either of them wants to.
Here's the trick. Which do you want to announce first, and which do you want to announce second, so that it'll be $50 less than the other one?
Right? What if it comes out and they still haven't announced a price? What if they're all in stores?
I would like to buy this console. Okay, how much you got on you?
How much do you think it is? If you guess right,
you go to the store and you buy the console, and they take your credit card and they put a hold for a certain amount of money on your credit card, maybe like $600 or something, right? But they're like, that's not the price of the console. That's just a hold. So that when the other guy announces what the price of their console is going to be, then we'll actually charge you the price of our console, which will be whatever theirs is plus $50 less.
Yeah, they reveal the price during checkout. That's a thing for.
When you put it in your cart.
I mean, I only have that happen when I don't actually pay attention to prices and don't do math at the store, which is not that often. I have a finite amount of dollars.
All right, coming up. At 5 o'clock, we've got Friday Night Paper Fight, which will not be paper. It will be on Arena. They're going to be playing some Gladiator, which is the super fun 100 card singleton arena format. So that's
and apparently Amonkhet is now legal in Gladiator, or has been accepted into Gladiator, or something like that. I saw that in like one of our Slack things the other day. So it's like, yeah, Amonkhet's now a thing, so we can think about that now.
Yay, I guess.
Yay.
Good.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
And their cards.
Then there's going to be a Factorio bonus stream on Saturday, apparently. And I think this is in favor of Factorio actually getting a... they have actually done their first release. Previously, it was early access. So apparently James has been strong-armed into playing with Fugi. So
yes, Fugi's wanted him to play.
What is this game?
It's like you're building a big contraption.
3D?
No, well, it's like top down, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's a little bit like some of the like really advanced, but some of the really weird modded Minecraft things that that James and Rebellious and also Fugi were doing is kind of the same idea with Factorio. You're like building a big machine
contraption
and doing contraption to do and get more efficient and all this kind of stuff.
But if it's top down, how is James going to fall off things?
He'll just have to wait until his own
how
storm.
will he do his trademark gameplay?
I don't know.
Okay.
If there's a
I have
way.
expectations.
Yes. And yeah, unfortunately, Satisfactory and Factorio do get confused.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Satisfactory is the game that we were talking about where they replaced the spiders with freaky, glitchy cat heads.
And
that's like a first-person game, whereas this one is more like RTS style.
Yeah. Not to refer people to other like YouTube channels, but there's a YouTube channel called Let's Game It Out, and he's done a few videos on Satisfactory, and there's just a couple that are his later ones are my favorites, but they're really fun, really fast edits of hey, I'm going to try to do a thing. And Josh, I think, is really funny.
He really likes conveyor belts.
He loves conveyor belts.
And he does some interesting things with those conveyor belts.
They're like 15-minute videos or 20-minute videos. Go watch one of them. They're good.
And then on Sunday, it's Kathleen's Island Tour, which might also involve mazes. I don't know. I hear that she has done some pretty fancy mazes. Probably not the same scale as we're talking on the other story. But... Kathleen and Cameron are going to be wandering around other people's islands. And then Heather and Ian are going to be playing what? What are you playing?
Ian should be playing Pop and Music 13. I believe we're on 13. I don't know which ones 13. We've actually done anymore. I know I've got like a spreadsheet somewhere. There are like over 20, and that's just the numbered versions. There's several unnumbered.
I thought they would have run out of music by now. Apparently not.
No.
Then on Monday, Cam continues his playthrough of Bloodborne, which made some progress.
Yeah, I don't know what he was doing, but I saw the chat kind of blow up when he succeeded.
Yeah, he seemed to have killed the nasty dude. Or think with like a big... It had like a big... like shawl thing over top and was killing him repeatedly.
Is that not the end of the game?
I don't think you have to do the bosses in order.
Oh,
so
I don't know I don't know how the game works. So
I think that's true of Dark Souls. So that might be true of Bloodborne. That you can go in odd order. But I don't.
He can play this for as long as he wants, as far as I'm concerned, as long as he's enjoying it. So
it is one of the blood beasts. That. I feel like in Bloodborne that doesn't narrow it down that much. All beasts are blood beasts, really. And then Monday evening, we have Dice Friends, our second episode of our brand new D&D campaign with Dale, Andy, Jacob, and Corey. It's called Best of Intentions, and it's been super fun so far. I highly recommend you check out the VOD of the previous game.
You can find that first episode up on youtube.com/loadingreadyrun.
Jacob and Corey are Warforged, and Andy is a half orc, and they are getting up to all sorts of mischief. Okay. Imagine this: they've ended up running an inn that's in this like weird magical, dangerous magical area where weird magic stuff happens all the time. And they're also joining, or also connected to their party, is this like 14-year-old girl who wants to get into being a like hunter for relics in this dangerous magic area. That's an anime, right? Like a bunch of strange, colorful characters operating an inn where weird magical things happen all the time. And there's also a 14-year-old girl who's like wants to be an adventurer. Like that's definitely an anime.
I'd watch that over Made in Abyss.
And then they all die.
Yeah. Oh, nobody dies in that. They just suffer.
Yeah.
Suffer.
And then on Tuesday we got Mine O'Clock, where James is going to be continuing on with the mine crafting. James and Serge and Rebellious Uno. Talking Sim. Cameron and Corey are playing something.
Yeah, it should be a new game. I think they finished Endless Fables 4. I think. Looked like they did. And
then on Tuesday evening, it's going to be Let's Snope with Ben and Adam. So, lots of cool stuff coming up. LoadingBayRun.com/live is the place to go to see the full schedule, and there's also a link to the calendar and everything there. And now, we should thank all you amazing people for subscribing to our channel. Starting with Bronzefinger for 78 months. Thank you very much.
I don't know how to pronounce this.
That's going to be, I believe that's nitrous oxide Sferatu. I think N2O is nitrous oxide.
N20 Sferatu, 29 months.
That's good too.
I think it's also referred to as NOS.
Yeah.
So NOS.
Yeah. Not nitrous oxide. Generally, it's just NOS. They will say, but yeah. But that would mean that you don't need the S in Sferatu at that point. I guess. Anyway,
know,
doesn't.
Man.
I wanna be Squid Hammer. Been here for 2 months. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back so I could do that.
It is a poor workman who blames his tools. But boss, this is a squid hammer. Shut up and hammer.
Split, 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 split.
Agent Magic Master for 80 months. Thank you very much.
Zombie Kira for 32 months. Not a Kira, but a zombie Kira.
Roy Eltham has been here for 38 months. Welcome back.
Robot in Progress, Pate 313, and The Wandering Nomad. All gifted by Ferrobender. Thank you very much.
Metcalf has come back for the 3rd month. Welcome back. I hope you've been having a good time.
Zoralundra has been here for 84 months, which has to be something divisible by 12. 12 times 7. Yeah. 12. That's 7 years.
We're gonna be very like I don't know what we're gonna do when we see the first person cross into triple digits.
Yeah, congrats on you 7 years.
JS 1813. They've been around for a really, really long time.
Kevin the Shark. The sharkiest sharks that is the Kevin. 49 months. Welcome back.
Shandius returns for the 3rd month. Thank you for coming back.
Aurelian 2773 for 43 months.
To start in 80 months. 80 months around the Twitch.
Exachix Kitsune has been here for 59 months. Nice.
The Clone Wars has been gifted by the Maricat.
The Maricat has gifted Yacht Gang.
Oh no.
We need to get some sailors' flags for our gang signs out here.
Cthulhu Caillou. That's a hell of a username. Welcome, and thanks to Maricat for that gift.
Broken Golem. Aw. For 45 months.
3 4/5 has been around for 11 months.
Veggie Kex is here for 17 months. That's a prime number.
Demeshed. For 7 months. Thank you.
80 talks. The letters, not the numbers, for 22 months.
Stoffern for 83 months, close to your 7-year anniversary.
Gravity Pike for 77 months. Thank you.
The Whedon Project for 75 months. Welcome back.
And I bet there's bits.
You would be incorrect.
Beach. Incorrect.
Thank you, everybody.
I have nothing to say.
Thank you, everybody, for all your support of the stream, both through subscribing and also through Patreon, of course. And thank you to 3 4/5 for those bits. Wait, are those actually bits? I don't think those are bits.
I believe those are.
Are those bits? Anyway.
They show up in purple, so you
Right,
don't have to
there you
give
go,
us
yes.
bits, guys, just because there wasn't any. But thank you, Royal.
Thank you,
Beach can just be
everybody,
wrong,
for putting
guys.
in the bits.
You can let Beach just be wrong.
Thank you, Space Potato 01, for continuing your subscription. And we are going to go away now. So, LRMTG, or Friday Night Paper Fight, is going to be on in just a little bit. But for now, we will talk to you later.